What's going on, Upstanders? Dr. O here, and let's talk about Senator Bernie Sanders. What the hell? Like, this dude going on a podcast, flagrant podcast with Andrew Schultz, of all people, of, racist black women jokes, Andrew Schultz of, rape Kendrick Lamar jokes and all of that other type of stuff. He goes on this podcast and starts basically sounding like, I don't know, an older version of Gavin Newsom nowadays, talking about, oh, Democrats are a threat to democracy, and Democrats have to get away from dealing with identity politics, and they're like, straight up nonsense. Two things. If you haven't seen, you may have seen that the family of Ashley Babbitt got $5 million from the Trump administration. Who was Ashley Babbitt, you might say? She's an insurrectionist she was an insurrectionist who was shot and killed as she tried to storm the Capitol and and breach the area where the congressional representatives were going to be. The officer said, you go forward, we're going to shoot, and they shot. Officer didn't know, and his life has been destroyed, by the way. Officer didn't know if she had a weapon or not and did what his job was. And that family got made millionaires by the Trump administration. That's a threat to democracy, Senator Sanders. You know what's also a threat to democracy? Getting rid of habeas corpus, getting rid of due process, getting rid of birthright citizenship. Those are threats to democracy. You and these Gavin Newsoms and all of these other guys around the country who on both sides these parties, it's utter nonsense. And it's reasons why I hope that nobody will vote for either of you if you ever choose to run for something, if you're going to have this mindset. The fact of the matter is, we can talk about problems with the Democratic Party. I talk about that all the time. On Clay Kane show, Roland Martin, on my own platform here, I have no problem criticizing Biden or Kamala or Obama or anybody, but the Democrats also being a threat to democracy. Some argue that you helped change some of the election rules for the Democratic Party and still lost anyway. Look, bro, you didn't get enough, because you said specifically after 2008, right? You didn't get enough votes. Folks didn't have you. Black folks ain't feeling you. Because every time somebody brings up something relating to race in this country, you always try to take it back to class. You try to do that with the late, great Dr. Joe Madison, and he called you out on it. Democrats have lots of problems that we can talk about and that we can challenge, and we do it every day. But Democrats being a threat to democracy is nonsense. It's nonsense. Democrats try to expand voting rights. Republicans try to shrink them. Democrats try to give everybody an opportunity to be engaged in the civic process. Republicans try to shrink that. That's a fact. And this idea that we're all the same, parties do the same thing, is nonsense, which leads us over to identity politics. How are you going to sit here and talk about like class is not part of identity? These guys who become all the billionaires who are part of Trump's administration, you don't think they have an identity of billionaire, out of touch individuals? Come on, now everything's based on class. Well, how about the fact that our class the descriptions, a lot of it came from race? If you black, you couldn't be in certain places. You brown, Latino, you couldn't be in certain spaces. Asian couldn't be in certain spaces. Let's talk about gender as it relates to class. Why are there more rich white men or rich men than women? It's because of opportunity barriers that women were not allowed to have to, because of what? Their identity. Republicans run on identity politics. Kamala Harris didn't run on identity politics. She couldn't. Why? Because people like you and people like the Andrew Schultzes of the world will sit there and say, you're trying to run on identity politics. You never saw Kamala Harris speak about being a black woman on the campaign trail unless she was asked. You never saw her talk about being part Indian, part Jamaican ancestry unless she was asked. But you saw Trump, who's the one who was saying, oh, all of a sudden she's black. And she was Indian one day and now she's black. And all. They made the identity an issue. They always make the identity politics the issue. They're the one arresting Latinos because they have tattoos on. Some of them faked tattoos about, making them look like they're drug references, even though to be part of Tren de Nicaragua, you don't need to have tattoos. Republicans do this every single day. Look at their ads on people who are part of the transgender community. Look at their ads as it relates to people who are part of the immigrant and black community, and run down the list. The Republicans have nothing without identity politics. No other person could have won the way Trump won but a white man. Nikki Haley couldn't do it. Vivek Ramaswamy couldn't do it. They couldn't run on the stuff he was running on. Any white Republican, Sarah Palin of the world, couldn't run on the way he was running and so on, because he had a 250-year history of whiteness and white manhood in the country protecting that to run on. That's identity politics. They're policies that want to turn this country back to a white Christian male nation. That's identity politics. Fact of the matter is, I wish Democrats would bring up identity more and stand more proud on the fact of that there are more people of diverse backgrounds within the party. But Obama couldn't run on it. Even Bernie Sanders, being Jewish, couldn't when he ran for office couldn't run on possibly being a Jewish president. Couldn't do that because they know what happens when Democrats try to run on identity politics at the high level. So you want to go on a podcast like Andrew Schultz, who's going to sit here and talk about, they're calling us the podcast bros and all that other type of stuff, and now Democrats are trying to get into podcast networks. Democrats were going on podcasts; they just weren't going to Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? And so if you want to go and sit with these guys, you want to talk about all these things going on in the party, if you want to talk about all the changes that need to have in the party, why all of these rallies, when people go to the websites for the rallies that you've been going to, why do all of the websites just go to fundraise, go to your website and not something like Act Blue to help fund other Democrats? Are you using that money that you're raising on these campaign trails to, help Democratic causes? You talk about being an independent. I don't know. Why don't you just switch over to Republican? Because people were talking about, people were either going to vote when Bernie was running. Their first option was Trump, or their second option was Bernie, and vice versa. This is nonsense. And if you think you're being hip, you're being cool, and so on and so forth, but going on these podcasts with racists and misogynists, and you think that's what's going to sway you towards more people in the Democratic Party, and you say this may be your last election, who knows? I don't know. And look, I'm never going to be the one to say no one should run because of their age. It's about connection to the people. And what do you stand for? And you say, if you people want identity politics, or if you're black, you're the greatest ever. If you're gay, the greatest ever. Was that type of slight? Is that a slight at Pete? Was that a slight at Kamala? What you doing here, man? What you doing here? Because it sounds like you kind of have this kind of white male preservation mindset as well. And this idea of, the last fair Democratic primary was in 2008. I don't know the man who said that, but this is just factually ridiculous. And Ken Martin, they're doing work to try to reform the process. Even Biden talking, the whole moving primary to South Carolina and so on and so forth. Democrats, again, not a perfect party by any stretch. Democrats, lots of issues, lots of challenges. If you've followed me on this page for more than a day, you know that I go in on them all the time. But this idea of them being a threat to democracy when the democratic process is actively being eroded. Kamala Harris, according to Greg Palast, lost over possibly 3 million votes because of voter suppression, which could easily put her over. Talk about that being a threat to democracy. And then you want to talk about identity politics and talk about the actual group that runs on identity politics more than any other group. And that's white males and white females within the Republican Party. And many people who chose to support Trump, they've supported him on identity politics, the preservation of whiteness. And some Latinos who always wanted to be part of the white community, and some black folks as well, who got down with that as well. That was whiteness. Great replacement theory. Bringing in, what was it, identity politics? Who was identity politics bringing in white people from South Africa and setting them up with houses and jobs and so on and so forth? And we don't even know if these people are actually farmers. Who did that? While getting rid of people from Afghanistan who helped us after 9/11 who are here, their status gone. Getting rid of Haitians who are here, their status is gone, in part because of the conflict that's going on in Haiti from guns that are coming from the United States. Getting rid of Latino immigrants who aren't even from places like Venezuela or from places like El Salvador and sending them to a concentration camp. Who's doing that? Are Irish people who are here undocumented getting sent to CCOT? Are Germans who are here undocumented getting sent there? No, Trump said that we can't have these people from these issue countries, and now he's importing more white people to compete with other Americans of all backgrounds for jobs, and people got no problems with it. Sounds like identity politics to me, Bernie. You got to wake up. Well, I don't know. Can't say you got to wake up, because if you wake up, I guess they're saying that you're woke. And then, of course, you got to be against that, of course. Y'all got to call a thing, and it's amazing watching Democrats who have a certain level of modicum of respect by people in the party, not like blind following, but just watching them lose their way daily, trying to appease to these MAGA types and be MAGA-lite. Y'all might as well just go all the way, because we ain't flowing with y'all today. Peace.